What is up, YouTube? Welcome back. Aeneas here. So it's Monday again. We got another Monday meta update for you today. And the metas, they are a changing because before we talked about how mono black was king, but the times are changing, it seems like. People are adapting, people are updating their decks, things are shifting, and mono black, still a very strong deck, but seems to be getting knocked down a peg a little bit from all the other decks. So let's take a look at it. Let's take a look at some of the changes in the meta. So if you look at just Untapped GG's tier list, you'll still see mono black is top, just because it's very consistent and people, this still includes some data from before a lot of people started shifting their decks a bit. So it's still solid, still a solid choice. It's definitely, it's gonna beat any of the not tier one decks, not other good decks. So yeah, still good. But if we look over here at some of the win rates from the same website, we can see things like Gruul Aggro is doing surprisingly well. Almost 55% win rate, nearly tied with Mono Black for win rate on that. So there's some new improvements, new interesting things people are doing to kind of beat out that Mono Black control. And yeah, so one of them is Gruul Aggro. Pretty interesting shell. Got Phoenix Chick, Rada's Firebrand, Quirion Beastcaller. That's another big one that the Mono Red deck doesn't have. You have Mina, Reckless Stormseeker, Squee. Squee is a huge player. This card is hard to deal with, and it gets around Liliana really well and stuff like that. So that one's a big one. Helena and Elena, they're still a really powerful card. If it comes down and the opponent doesn't have an answer immediately, it just runs away with the game. So that's still really solid. Got safekeeping to keep your cards like Helena and Elena alive. Got Lightning Strike for removal and to go face, stuff like that. So basically, these are kind of like mono red lists that have been updated a little bit to be better versus the black matchup. Bribery Tracker, another card that's been doing really well. It's got a good body and it gives you draw later in the game. So yeah, solid on that one. So these are just kind of the new inventions in the Gruul decks people have been trying. So yeah, that's another solid card if you really like aggro. This one is doing well. Of course, Selesnya Enchantments always seems to have good results, even though personally I never lose to it, but they seem to be doing decently well against mono black at least. So that's another option if you like that. But yeah, interesting. So that's just from Untapped. If we look at the competitive scene, you'll see what I mean by black is no longer king anymore in the meta. So take a look at this best of 3 finals cup that happened recently. Number 1 spot, Orzhov Planeswalkers. Orzhov Planeswalkers. So this is a pretty interesting list. Just hitting on the fact that we have a lot of really strong Planeswalkers in white and black right now. Wandering Emperor, Liliana, Sorin, Elspeth Resplendent. You use your Elspeth to get things like your Graveyard Trespasser, stuff like that. You can get your other Planeswalkers with Elspeth, so that's pretty nice. Yeah, and even some interesting ones like Rafine's Informant and stuff like that. So it's a little bit aggro at the beginning, and then it turns into a more mid-range Planeswalker deck at the end. So pretty sweet. Wedding Announcement, also really good against Liliana, so that helps you against the black matchup, stuff like that. So yeah, it's that Orzhov is taking down mono black. Seems to be doing pretty well. I've seen a few other results like that where Orzhov is just destroying black decks. And Jund is also still doing very well. You'll often see Jund in like the top 3 slots of tournaments. I saw quite a few lists where people got their 7-0 in the metagame challenge with Jund. Jund is a very solid deck. And even when I played some Rakdos and stuff like that on the ladder, Jund is usually the one that beats Rakdos. And so, yeah, it's a strong deck. It's a very strong deck. It's kind of like the bigger mid range. All right, and let's take a look at some other tournaments because This one has also some very interesting decks. This one has the top 3 places of this huge tournament. This was like a 700 player tournament. And the top 3 places, first one is Esper mid-range. So this one has Rafine. This has the Resolute Enforcements, the Flash creature that makes 2/1/1s. Ao the Dawn Sky, Phyrexian Missionary. So this one's got a lot of cards that we haven't seen before. And yeah, it took down this massive tournament in Japan. Really cool, really cool. So Esper destroying Mono Black, destroying Rakdos to take the win. Just showing you that the meta is not solved yet. Black cards are still good, but it seems like maybe it's better to splash some other colors with black as well. Yeah, so that's the Esper one. We also got Mardu, took 2nd place. Also pretty sweet. This is more of like a Rakdos shell with a little bit of white splashed in there. And mostly for Rite of Oblivion, which is a strong card for exiling things, exiling planeswalkers, exiling underdogs, etc. So that's a smart decision, you know, splashing that white for that. Definitely worth it, seems like. And Wedding Announcement, another splash. Both of those cards very good against the mirror, so it makes sense to include that. So if your Rakdos is not quite cutting it, you might try this Mardu mid-range one instead. All right, and 3rd place also Esper. Very cool as well. We got pretty much same list as the one above, but this one has Thera Paragon in it and Destroy Evil, which is an interesting include. Destroy Evil destroys an enchantment, or it can take out a creature with toughness 4 or more. So it gets rid of the Shieldred and stuff like that. Yep. So Esper seeming like a real thing. Took the 1st and 3rd slots with different lists. Mardu also probably an upgrade on Rakdos for the most part, so that's pretty cool. And then Grixis took 4th place, and in a few other tournaments, Grixis also did very well. So it seems like people are moving on from Mono Black and Rakdos and adding a 3rd color in a lot of their decks and doing even better. So I would be on the lookout for trying out John, trying out Esper, trying out Mardu, trying out Grixis. Seems like these 3 color decks are going to probably be taking the #1 slots in most of the tournaments coming up because they're just a little bit stronger than the Mono Black as long as their mana cooperates. That's the main advantage Mono Black has, is that you're never going to have bad mana bases because you're always going to have your land, right? So that's the trade-off. Slightly worse mana base, but stronger cards overall. So you have to decide if it's worth it for you. Yeah. Anyway, this one's with Solkanar, Urtai, stuff like that. Pretty cool list, pretty solid, and yeah, if you like Grixis, this one is for you. This one's pretty sweet. Alrighty, and then this was another tournament. Best of 3 Swiss tournament. This one I think was a little bit smaller, if I recall. But top winning one was Grixis, similar to that last list with Solkanar, Urtai, Shieldred, Corpse Appraiser, Blood Harvester, stuff like that. So Solkanar doing some work, getting 1st place in this one, getting 4th place in the other tournament. Yeah, pretty sweet, pretty sweet. And this is a new surprise one. Boros mid-range. People are making some improvements to the mono white aggro, adding some Boros in there, and having some good success with that. Basically, kind of like tokeny, value engine stuff like that. And then they have Titan of Industry and Sanctuary Warden to go over the top at the end with their Invoke Justice. So pretty interesting. Invoke Justice. So kind of a white reanimator deck. That is a very creative deck. I hope it continues to be good. I would love to see more of that in the meta. Destroy Mono Black. So yeah, pretty cool. Interesting list. Lots of cool innovations coming out this weekend. So if you are into that kind of stuff, Esper, you know, Esper seems really strong. We saw that Grixis is doing really well. And we saw some interesting, maybe not quite as good decks, but seem to be doing well. Boros and Mardu and stuff like that. So yeah, give it a try on the ladder. Have some fun. These decks are solid. I mean, they took down these massive tournaments to win lots of money. So, the people were trying their best to win with their mono black decks, and they just couldn't cut it. So these decks have what it takes. Try them out on the ladder, have some fun. Don't feel like you have to play mono black. So yeah, we saw some crazy new decks coming out over this weekend, and that'll be it for the Monday meta update. Go out there, have some awesome times on the ladder, win some games, and until next time, see ya.